Hello, everyone, and guess who we've got for the guest today? So it's 23rd of April, and 32 years ago, if my maths is correct, Reading were on their way to winning the 93-94 Division 2 title, and a certain player who we're about to speak to got the Player of the Year award. And on this day, 32 years ago, he scored a bit of a wonder goal. So I'm going to talk to him about that. It was the 4-0 game away to Blackpool. So it gives me great pleasure, as always, to say hello and welcome to Mr. Dylan Kerr, my lord. Hello, Dylan.
Oh Lord, back again, Mark.
I know, I know.
Good
It's
to hear you.
deja
Long
vu, isn't
time.
it? Deja vu. So, Dylan, you're speaking to us from New York, where you're working as a coach now, and you've had some snow there recently, but now I can see it's a nice sunny day there.
Yeah, t-shirts on, the shorts are on. Hopefully it's the first week of spring, although the forecast for the next few days is going to be very, very cold. But yeah, today and I'm actually going to watch my first baseball game. I'm going to the Yankee Stadium tonight. So it's yeah, it's going to be a good day. Got training this afternoon, and then I've got to head off to the Yankee Stadium to watch New York Yankees. I don't know who they're playing. I'm not into baseball, but when in Rome, as they say, go and watch it. So I'm
When in
big
New
into
York.
my American football, but baseball, well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. So I've seen New York Yankees play against Boston Red Sox, and I think New York Yankees have still got Aaron Judge, and he's like the one of the wonder boys of baseball. So if they've still got him playing, you might see one or two home runs. But anyway, good luck with that. I hope you enjoy it. So look, Dylan, we're rewinding to the 93-94 season, Division 2. You joined in the summer before that season started. And we're going to put this out. We're recording it in advance, but we're going to put this out on the anniversary of that 4-0 win at Blackpool and a certain goal by your good self. Um, and that if you look hard enough, you can still find a video of that goal on YouTube. So have a look for that. But we've got the man himself to describe it. So look, Dylan, you're going for the title. It's your first season. You win Player of the Season that year under Mark McGee and Colin Lee. And it's during an unbeaten run of games at the end of that season. You go to Blackpool, and this one pretty much is going to guarantee not just promotion but winning the title. When you were sort of going for promotion, going for the title, you go to Blackpool that day. Um, First of all, talk us through that goal, if you could.
Well, I'll back up a bit there because the year before I was on loan at Blackpool. I did 3 months on loan. Billy Ayre, who signed me on loan from Blackpool, wanted me to sign for Blackpool, but the price that Leeds United wanted was, I think, £175,000, which Blackpool, unfortunately, they couldn't pay that. I went back to Leeds, and the reason I ended up at Reading was because of a certain Mr. Billy Ayre, God rest his soul. I'd actually agreed to sign for Huddersfield Town. We played in the opening game of the season and won 3-0 with ex-Reading goalkeeper Steve Francis in goal. And I remember the fans weren't happy because they didn't want him to leave. And, look what happened to Shaq Hayslop when he took his place. But yes, I'd agreed to sign for Huddersfield. And Mike Lewis had come in with a last-minute offer. And I picked up the phone to Billy Ayre. I asked him, where should I go? And in a heartbeat, he just said, bang, Reading. Mark McGee, Colin Lee, they've got something happening down there. And he's got a good squad of players. And by God, he was right. What a good squad of players we had. And, obviously he added Ray Ranson, Shackle came, myself. And I think that was it really. That was the only signatures that I can remember that signed that year. And I remember going into the bookies down Oxford Road. We were 33-1 to get promoted, not to win the league, to get promoted. And I was very, very, very close using my 10,000 signing on fee we got back in the day, and putting it on that. But I didn't know Reading Football Club that well. I'd only been there, a couple of days, and the only person I met was Andy Gray in the office. And so that's a wee little background on the Blackpool Reading Billy Ayre scenario, how I ended up at Elm Park. But yeah, every time we went to Blackpool, Blackpool's the holiday destination for people just going out on, for stag nights, for birthdays. It was the place to go to. And I remember every time we played at Blackpool, I'd make sure that my friends all came. So I think there were about 25 of my friends came. So me going around scrounging for tickets that day, I was more focused on getting my friends a ticket than the game. But the reason being, we were on such a run, we were on such a high. We just went into every game knowing that we could win, or knowing that if we weren't going to win, we were going to perform so well that the opposition had to play better than us. And I think there was only one game that season. I think we struggled. I think it was Swansea away that we really didn't do very well. We didn't play as best. But that day at Blackpool, I remember going through the dressing room, meeting all the Blackpool executives, the chairman, Mr. Oyston. He said, "Why did you come to Blackpool? Why did Leeds want so much money for you?" And I just turned around and said, "Well, you're a billionaire, so surely you could afford that. It's fish and chip money to you." And he laughed, and I said, "I saw Billy, as ever professional, he just give me a nod, because he was looking after Blackpool." And we went into that game knowing that Bloomfield Road was always difficult. The weather, it wasn't bad, considering it was spring. It wasn't the sunniest of days in Blackpool. So we went to that game knowing that, and if you can imagine Bloomfield Road back in the day with that empty stand with no roof on it, and it was chocker with Reading fans, most of them probably going out for the weekend in Blackpool as they do. And it just clicked. We were playing against some good players at Blackpool at the time, and we just dominated the game from start to finish. And I remember, being left-footed, playing at Blackpool, playing at a club that I respected, and a manager that I really, really respected, and playing against him and scoring the goal and doing my usual celebration. Now players return to clubs and they don't really celebrate. Scoring my right foot, and the manner that it were against a good goalkeeper called Jason Keaton, who was on loan with me at Blackpool. Scoring against him, and winding him up in the tunnel at half time, going down the tunnel and coming out the tunnel. It was just the atmosphere, Mark. The atmosphere of the players, the atmosphere of the squad, the atmosphere of knowing that, Mark and Colin, sorry, I can call him Mark now, but the gaffer and Colin, John Heselden, the physio, Mike Lewis, the effervescent, secretary or whatever his title were. We just had it together. We clicked, and I often look back on them games, because obviously some people post them and it's on YouTube, and like I said, somebody I've got them all. I've got all my goals that I scored at Reading on my Twitter account. And some days when you're feeling a bit pissed off or a bit low, you always want to, give yourself a wee smile and show people in the office, and especially show the kids that you're coaching in America, because they actually don't know who you are until you tell them who you are. And then they look at the videos, and they're nudging the kid next to them at the seat or at the training ground. "Oh, did you see Coach Dylan's goal?" And it just gives you the pleasure of knowing that I added value to that Reading Football Club squad for 75 grand. Mike Lewis is still complaining to this day that Mr. Fotherby cheated him out of 75 grand, but that season, well, all the seasons, obviously it didn't go well towards the end with my injury and, Mark and Colin leaving. And it was a tough job for Quinny and Mickey Gooding to take over. especially with the players that we had, and some so obviously moved on. Adi moved on, Jilson moved on, Ozzy moved on, and Scotty Taylor moved on. People moved on, and so we kind of we lost that spark. You know, when Mark and Colin went. I said we had the nucleus of the squad. It wasn't just like 75%, 80%, 90%. It was 100% of a team collective performance, both on and off the field, because we played hard on the field. We played hard even, off the field, because we respected each other. We wanted it more than anybody else, and nobody, I would think, at the beginning of the season, as the bookies stated, would ever see Reading winning promotion, never mind winning the championship. So yeah, and I remember in the game when we scored the fourth goal, not one Blackpool fan left the stadium. We left the stadium when the whistle went. We went obviously to our Reading fans first, to thank them for turning up and supporting us. But then as we walked off, the majority, I would have said 85%, if not 90% of Blackpool supporters were still in the stadium, and we got a standing ovation. We were that good, Mark. We were that good. And
Dylan, we've very recently celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Robin Friday goal in 1976, which is regarded as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, goal in Reading's history. But that goal that you scored that day was pretty special. So you did a 1-2. You because you're left-footed, but you curled it into the top corner with your right foot. Can you talk us through that goal? Because there was a lot of confidence about that, right?
It's like, I mean, look, every goal that I scored at Reading was just it was a team effort. I always remember the one at Stoke where I tried to play a 1-2 with Archie, and I blame Archie because he didn't read it. Obviously, Parky made one of the most amazing crunching tackles to win the ball back. That came back to me, and the 1-2 worked, and the left foot outside of the foot bent into the far corner. This one was, similar. I got the ball, played it again, got the ball back, and they all knew I was left-footed. They all knew what I could do with the left foot. Billy Ayre would have told them. Mike Davis, the right back, knew all about it. And Ginge, as I called him at Blackpool, we have this banter about my right foot and his left foot. And we both scored brilliant goals with our weaker foot. And that day was my first one with my right foot, where it just seemed to be nicely sat. And as I struck the ball, I knew it was going in. And you can see straight away, if anybody sees the video, I'm off, I'm gone. The shirt was over there, and I'm going to go to it. The shirt was over their head, the arms are over there. Tom Jones grabbed hold of me. Quinny jumped on my back, and Archie, I think, was in front of me. I think it was Archie. And it was like, I'll send you the picture. I've got the picture somewhere. And it was just like scoring against Blackpool, it just put the icing on the cake, because, like I said, I got all my best friends, everybody who wanted to come to Blackpool for the weekend. They came up. Paul Tanner, South Bank 1965, I think he's on Twitter. He drove my car up to Blackpool, so him and the Hound, drove up to Blackpool in my car because I was staying for the weekend. And like I say, it was just for me to score it with my right foot as well. Even though I knew I could score with my right foot, it was pretty special, and I'm glad I did it at Blackpool. Sorry, guys, at the Seasiders, do apologise, but like I say, I think the memory of it all was at the end of the game, when I don't know if it was because I'd been at Blackpool, because Blackpool supporters were unhappy that I didn't sign. They really, really wanted me to sign, and but I'd like to think that there was a special place for me there, as there always is at Reading, where I performed for them for 3 months, as I did in 3 seasons at Reading. So yeah, it was a gem of a goal.
And then the next game was another away game at Stockport. You drew that, and then you played Brighton at home, and that was right at the end of April, and you win 2-0. Jimmy Quinn scores that goal, you've scored, the second goal. You're going to win the game. You're going to win the title. There's the pitch invasion. The game hasn't even actually finished yet. Jimmy Quinn puts that header in. I think it was Stuart Lovell that might have crossed it. And that pitch invasion, that must have been like something special to be part of when Jimmy Quinn scored that goal and everyone ran onto the pitch.
Yeah, because if you can imagine at Leeds, the fences were still up at the around the grounds at Leeds when we won the old Division 2 and then the old Division 1, which is now the Championship and the Premiership. We never had that pitch invasion at Leeds. I played a bit part in that in them 2 championships. We had some good players there, and that's one of the things when Gordon Strachan said to me, I'd been offered a new 2-year contract. I'd been there 4 years. I'd played a handful of games. I wasn't going to get in front of Speedo, Tony DeRigo, not a chance. And you got McAllister, Batty, Odgie in midfield, Strachan on the right midfield. I went, I was good enough, but I weren't better than them, and I kind of got it. So when Strachan told me, I needed to get out because I could play and make a name for myself, it's probably the best advice, because I would have stayed at Leeds. I was comfortable at Leeds. I was respected by the players. I was respected by the management. Obviously, Howard signed me at Wednesdays, released me at Wednesdays, brought me back to Leeds. So kind of like having that one first season where I played practically, I think I missed 1 game against Rotherham at home, and I was part of it. I wasn't part of it at Leeds, even though I was, but I didn't play that many games. I didn't get a medal. But playing at Elm Park and when Quinny scored that second goal and the fans just invaded the pitch. I mean, I've been a fan person. I'm a football fan, and I enjoy occasions like that. I've got hundreds of pictures with me sitting in the stands with fans, with me chatting to the fans, with me, the fans became part of our family. So not only we had a football family, we had a fan base family. We used to do things off the cuff. We used to do things that involved the community that people don't understand what we used to do. And I think we were one of the first clubs to actually do things with, supporters. We'd go to the Royal Rendezvous after the game. We'd obviously go to Washington Heights. We go to Utopia. We go to all the Cunning Man down in Burfield. We go to so many places, and people have come up and talked to us. We weren't Billy Big Time. We were just normal people. And again, let me rewind it to the pre-season. I think it was myself, Geordie, and Parky, if I remember. We decided to go out for a day in Pangbourne, and we went to I think it's the White Swan, but all the players went. All the players went, and all the players stayed. They all stayed all afternoon, tea time, night time. We arrived together after training. We left together. When one left, we all left, and that's the thing we did as a group of players. And at the end of the day, when you're in a successful football team, if you've got that in your squad, you'll not lose. And let's go to Tottenham Hotspur at the moment. No disrespect to Spurs, but I don't think they've got that. And unless they get that back, they're going to go to the Championship, and they're going to struggle to come back to the Premiership, because the Championship is the hardest league in football. Because everybody wants the Eddie Heights of the Premiership money. So yeah, I've always throughout my career, we had it at Sheffield Wednesday, we had it at Leeds, we had it at Reading, I had it at Kilmarnock, took it to Hamilton Academicals, I took it to America when I first came out here coaching, I took it to Africa, Vietnam, and now I'm in America, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm making sure that our group of coaches is a family, and we do things together. We do things, that I feel is important, because it's a hard job coaching in America. It's a good job at times. It's frustrating as hell Um, a lot of the times. But if we as a coaching family can get across what we want and we're all on the same page, which we were at Reading, then we're going to get success, 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 and that's what we had at Reading, success.
And just talk about the role that Mark McGee and Colin Lee had that season. Obviously, they left the following season, and we all know what happened at the end of that season. But the season you won the title, your first season, Player of the Year, um, it was very much about Mark McGee and Colin Lee as a double act, really, wasn't it? It was obviously Mark McGee manager, Colin Lee assistant manager, but they worked really well together as a team. What was that like for the players?
Mark was the gaffer was he was funny because he always wanted to play. So 5-a-sides on a Friday, we had a bit of fun. Players were able to relax. We didn't do much. We didn't do hardly any set pieces or any phases of play. We just played. We had a 5-a-side at Coombe Park, which was like Wembley Stadium. It was a dream to practice there. Colin Lee was total opposite. He didn't mess with Colin. That's why he was such a good centre forward when he played, because it was all about being a professional, and he took that into his coaching, and them two as manager and assistant manager, it worked. It worked because the master tactician was Colin, but what Mark added was that Scottish wee banter, that kind of relaxed Scottish atmosphere that the Scots kind of have. They don't take any shit, but they can give it out as good as they get it. And if you came across Colin and he didn't like it, you'd know about it, and the gaffer, even though you'd get angry and you'd look at him and you think he means business here, because of that kind of relationship we had as players with him, we were able to do stuff that kind of helped him along. Obviously, he's moved to Wolves, and then he's moved to Leicester and then to Wolves. You can't blame him. I mean, look at Reading Football Club. No respect to Reading Football Club at the time, but Leicester were bigger. Wolverhampton were massive. They got big. They got big bags of money to support the gaffers that they've signed, that have taken over the club. And Sir John Medeski, who I love to bits, by the way, he kept the club at a tight rein. Him and Graham Denton, Mike Lewis, who I've mentioned before, they kept the club healthy. And like I say, it reverberated. It just wasn't just about the players. It came from Sir John at the top. I don't think he was Sir John at the top then. It was just John. Auto Trader, the board of directors, the office staff, which was Jane Rabbit and Jackie Evans, who's still there to this day, who I had coffee with a couple of weeks ago in New York City, which was nice. And you got the management, you got the players, you got Ron Grant, who was amazing. You got the Fred Neat, the groundsman, who was come rain, snow, or pouring down with ice, he'd be out on Elm Park with his lawnmower, his pair of shorts, and usually he didn't have a t-shirt on. So yeah, that collectiveness that we had, obviously from a playing point of view, it started with Mark and Colin, and they signed the right players. They could have gone out and asked for more players, but I don't think it'd have worked. When you're a manager, when you're a coach, you have to bring players that, as I call it, a jigsaw. It's a jigsaw puzzle, and each piece is different, and you have to merge them pieces. And no matter who you sign or who you want to sign, if that one piece doesn't fit, it can affect that big jigsaw, and you, like I say, you won't get any success with that.
And I think it was really interesting at that time. Reading was starting to become like an international kind of team, because you had Shaka, Trinidad and Tobago, you had Andy Bernal, Stuart Lovell, I think, played a couple of games for Australia. You had Jimmy Quinn, Northern Ireland. So you was it was going through that period when teams were, you know, signing players from other countries, and you had that nice mix of players, didn't you? I think Michael Gilks played for Barbados as well, didn't he? And so you had a really nice balance. That there were really good players individually, but as a team, you just had that great balance, didn't you? And some great characters.
Yeah, I mean, Giltsy and Shaka, I think they were both lucky men on the beaches of Trinidad and Barbados. Don't know about international footballers. But yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, Ray Ranson came very experienced, Manchester City, England international, and then you got myself. Gary Holtzman was, the other left back at the club. You got Jeff Hopkins, Macca, Adi Williams, who all three of them. It was a competition. It was a competition. And then Bernie had signed. You'd got obviously Parky and Kevin Dillon in midfield with Mickey Goodin and Scotty Taylor on the right hand side. Scotty Taylor were a dream. And Chelsea was like lightning. Me and Chelsea, what a relationship we had. I mean, he used to kill me because I used to go. Oh, I always used to run past him, and everybody says Chelsea were quick, but I was quicker, to be fair. and then you got Quinny and Archie up front. You got Andy Gray on the bench. Who, like I said, Andy Gray, if he'd have played and he could have scored like Stuart Lovell, who knows what would have happened. But it's been in the time, been in the moment, and when you get that opportunity, you got to take it. And I remember my first pre-season friendly for Reading. The ball was like, it was above my head, and I'm 5'11", and I actually somehow did this scissor pass, and it went straight to Quinn, who chested it, volleyed it, and it was a goal. And I'm thinking, yeah, I can play with Quinny. I can play with Quinny. You know where he was going to be. It was an out and out striker. It was a goal poacher. Archie used to do the hard work, the busy work. Jiltsy, you knew what you were going to get from Jiltsy. Scotty Taylor surprised me because, I didn't see Scotty Taylor as that kind of player. And then you got James Lambert, who's in the background. Again, big things for James Lambert. It didn't happen for him, because like myself at Leeds, I couldn't get in, and James Lambert couldn't get in. And who knows if Chelsea had been injured, Tony Rodrigo had been injured, Gary Speed had been injured, and I got my opportunity. We might not be having these conversations. I might not be part of Reading's legacy. So it's always about taking that chance. But yeah, I mean, I say I've said it before in our, when we used to do our podcasts, the stories that I could tell at Reading Football Club, what we did and what we got up to. It was all of us together. Quinny and Tom Jones lived in Swindon, Macca and Shaka lived in London, but we all came together when we had to. We had our own space, we had our own time, but some days after Tuesday we'd go to the Pangbourne Working Men's Club with Mickey Goodin, we're a member. We'd go play snooker. Him and Parker would have a drinking competition. Parker would obviously lose because he's a plant feeder. And I say that's the thing we did, and it didn't take away from the hard work. Everybody might think, oh, well, we didn't take it serious. By God, we took it serious because Mark worked as hard, Colin even harder. And if you were injured, you weren't just in there for treatment, you were in there for the whole day. So nobody wanted to be injured. Nobody wanted to be injured and listen to John Heselden's stories.
All right, Dylan. Well, we're almost out of time now, so it's been brilliant to speak to you, as it always is. And I'd love to come over to New York and have a coffee with you. I don't know if that'll happen any time soon.
Home soon.
But yeah, get in touch when you come back. But always a pleasure to speak to you, Dylan Kerr. Thank you very much.